On the night of April 14th, 1912, whilst most of her passengers had retired for the night, the RMS Titanic, the largest and most lavish ocean liner of its time, glided smoothly through the dark, icy waters of the North Atlantic Ocean. Suddenly, shortly before midnight, the ship's lookouts spotted a massive iceberg emerge from the blackness of its path ahead. News of the ship's imminent danger quickly spreads amongst its crew, who tried desperately to evade the disaster that was looming before them. But it was already far too late. We all know how the rest of the story goes. Cue the collision, cue the terror, and cue the subsequent sinking of the infamously unsinkable ship. On the ocean floor, she now slept. That night, the Titanic and the cold, icy ocean surrounding claimed the lives of approximately 1,500 people. 111 years later, 5 more would be claimed.
General MacArthur said, "You are remembered for the rules you break." And, I've broken some rules to make this.
Hello and welcome to I Could Murder a Podcast. We are here in the deep, dark depths. And I'm joined by Ben Carter. A year older, a year wiser. It's up to you. How you doing, Ben?
Yeah, doing really well, thanks. Thank you for the lovely statement about my intelligence. I feel wiser, actually, Only a few weeks wiser, but a few days wiser, actually. I've counted too far ahead already. But doing really well. Thank you so much for having me. How are we? Producer Dan.
Very good. You're both looking very fresh, very ready to go, very happy. I'm feeling the same, actually. How was your little birthday party? Not little, that's a bit condescending.
Yeah, very condescending.
That's not something I've been anxious about. It was very, very good, thank you.
Great.
Got a bottle of peach schnapps from Tom, got a little beer and snacky hamper from you, and we ended the evening after a few games of beer pong by the campfire, just telling stories.
But yes, guys, this case, I know it's one that you guys have been buzzing to do. It's one that I find very intriguing also. This one is a little bit different to what we've done before. We have done, boats crashing, etc. But I feel this falls into its own category.
Yeah, I would agree. And I remember when this event happened, because it was just over a year ago, we were actually gearing up for Series 8, I believe, which was our audio only one, and we actually were researching Costa Concordia at the time. So we are familiar with the ocean a little bit.
We dipped a toe.
Yeah, but the deeper you dip that toe and the further you go, the more my fears start to show.
Shut up, bro. Dan, you're very interested in this case, though.
I'm positively frothing at the mouth for this one because I am fascinated by the ocean. It is an absolute nightmare for me to put myself in that situation, being in a submersible and a rickety one at that. It's absolutely terrifying, but I bloody love the ocean.
Why shouldn't you take Afro Man to the beach?
Why?
It's not a riddle. Because when it's seaweed, he smoke it. And he wouldn't get much done, as we know from the song. But yes, quite throw back that one, because I don't know how long ago Afro Man has been on the scene, but there you go. Yeah, this one it is one I'm sure people are familiar with, or definitely heard some stuff about this one. It also adds a bit of intrigue to it in terms of how costly it was to do such a trip. But Ben, can you actually announce to the audience what this case is?
Absolutely. So this week it is the case of the Titan submersible disaster, also known as the OceanGate incident, the case of Stockton Rush, the Titan implosion, terror in the Titan, and I don't want that planet in my footlong. Planet Mars bar used to be called Titan Subway footlong, the Titan Sub.
I hate that one.
Sorry?
That's all right. We'll move on. Terror in the Titan. That was surely you.
Yes, yes. But I did see it as a headline out there somewhere. I'm convinced. Not fully convinced, but somewhat convinced. Yeah.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, with this one, it's one that the three of us have been absolutely fascinated with. And I think the more research I've done on Stockton Rush as a person and his background and his motivations going into this, the deeper you get into it, the darker and more disturbing it does get, figuratively, literally, metaphorically, all of the Lees. Yeah, this one is, I cannot believe it's been allowed to happen. And I understand the term international waters being a way that they kind of circumnavigated any responsibility, but I just still don't know how this was allowed to happen. It's unbelievable.
Well, shall we stop splashing around in the shallows and dive into the deep depths of this case, boys?
Let's do it.
Dan, I want you to say let's do it.
Let's roll.
Yeah, nice.
Let's dive.
18th of June 2023, 8 a.m. Despite a multitude of concerns expressed by both internal and external whistleblowers, as well as numerous industry leaders, OceanGate, a privately owned sea tourism and underwater exploration company, proceeds with its 14th scheduled expedition, 3,800 meters below the ocean's surface, to the world's most famous shipwreck, Titanic. The deep-sea submersible being used for the dive, aptly named Titan, is proclaimed as the first in the world of its kind, with the just under 7x3 meter vessel using pioneering technology and materials to make waves and certainly cut corners in the world of ocean tourism. The vessel had not been classified or certified, meaning that it had not met safety standards set by any of the recognized regulatory bodies. And it had many experts within the industry desperate to keep it out of the water, deeming it a death trap, and warning those behind the submersible of its possible dangers. On board Titan are 5 people. 61-year-old co-founder and CEO of OceanGate, Stockton Rush, who is piloting the submersible. 77-year-old Paul-Henri Nargelet, aka Mr. Titanic, a former French Navy captain turned deep-sea explorer and Titanic expert. 58-year-old British businessman, adventurer and explorer George Hamish Livingston Harding, a man who had been both out of space and to the Mariana Trench as well as the South Pole on 3 separate occasions. 48-year-old Pakistani businessman and philanthropist Shahzada Dawood, as well as Shahzada's eldest of 2 children, 19-year-old Suleiman Dawood. Stockton, Hamish and Shahzada each had a wife and 2 children, whilst Paul-Henri was a widower with a second wife as well as 4 children and 4 grandchildren.
The descent typically takes between 2 to 3 hours to reach the ocean floor, allowing for a few hours to explore both halves of the wreck, before spending an additional 2 to 3 hours ascending back to the surface. For the first hour and a half of the Titan's dive, everything appeared to be in order, with Titan making contact with its mothership, MV Polar Prince, once every 15 minutes. Spirits were high, and a mixture of excitement and anticipation filled the air. However, just 15 minutes later, at around 9:45 a.m, contact between Titan and Polar Prince came to an abrupt stop. The vessel and the millionaires aboard it were completely lost, perhaps caught amongst the wreck itself, or stranded amidst the debris field. What followed next was a series of international rescue missions, as well as a global media frenzy. It quickly became one of the most captivating and extensively broadcasted moments of 2023. Numerous ships, aircraft and remote-operated submersibles were launched into action, whilst news stations gradually picked apart the highly concerning and controversial history behind OceanGate. Experts stepped in, relatives came forward, and numerous conspiracies were born. All of this happened whilst a 96-hour countdown began. The 96 hours of oxygen reserve on board Titan that was sealed in alongside the fates of the 5 missing souls. But what were these concerning stories related to OceanGate? Which warnings and legal battles were completely overlooked? Why were all of Titan's passengers made to sign a waiver that used the word death 3 times on the very first page? And how likely was it that the 5 men would be safely returned to their families?
So, I mean, before we get into it, would this kind of trip appeal to... I think Dan's going to say yes, but not at all? Does it appeal to you guys at all, this kind of voyage?
Not in the slightest.
Prior to this instance, I would have been more intrigued by this than going to outer space, which I know is going to piss Dan off.
I'm fuming.
Yeah. But I also have, similar to Dan, I feel, I do have thalassophobia. I'm scared of deep, dark water. I don't like swimming anywhere deeper where I can't see my legs. So I would struggle with a situation like this.
See your legs?
You know, when you're like, you can't see what you're standing on.
It's just because you're swimming, your legs are behind you.
Usually, yeah, but check my peripherals and all that. But no, I think I'm fascinated with shipwrecks and the Titanic in particular. So this would very much have appealed to me. There is no chance in hell, even in a different company with perfectly well-established reputation, that I would consider anything like this now.
I think if it was like the 20th voyage, of someone and they've done it before, and you're like, yeah, okay, yeah, I can see the appeal. I think for me, the idea of space compared to this is, in theory, if you look at it, you think the descent and coming back, you'd be able to do it a lot quicker and it'd be a lot safer than space in that sense. I found a slightly odd one that these millionaire thrill seekers have gone, oh, this is the one to do. So yeah, as I said, especially with it being kind of the first attempt at it, really. It's intriguing, to say the least.
I think for me, because he was, I'm sure we'll touch on this later, but he was so blasé about how many corners he cut right from the off, even to his fellow passengers, right? Talking about the gaming controllers and the lights that he used inside and how it was put together. And he was quite weirdly proud of that. And if I saw that, I'd be like, see ya, Stockton, bye.
Yeah, bodge job.
Yeah.
It's it's very concerning because he, as Dan said, it almost seemed proud of the corners that he'd cut, and they were operating so far out of the box that I think it got to the point they didn't know how far they'd gone. And as we go through this, it's just I still can't believe it's happened and how it was allowed to happen, and the fact that he was put, anyone that tried to warn him, stop him, advise him, it just seemed to make him angry and fuel him to continue doing this, which I don't understand that, considering his family dynamic and his the achievements he had made to date. It just seemed to be it was the only way was his way, and unfortunately it's ended in the most devastating of ways.
Do you think a charlatan or just a kind of very intelligent man who's got a bit carried away?
I'd say a little bit. It just seems like a bit of an egomaniac, but I'll go with a mixture of both if that's okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
So a little bit of background. Richard Stockton Rush III was born on the 31st of March 1962 in San Francisco, California. He was the youngest of 5 children born to Richard Stockton Rush Jr. and Ellen Margaret Davis Rush. The Rush family were considered to be extremely wealthy, owing in part to Stockton's maternal grandfather, Ralph K. Davis, who once became the youngest director in the history of Standard Oil California. Whilst his maternal grandmother, meanwhile, was such a popular philanthropist across the state of California that she had a concert hall named after her. And this is the Louise M. Davis Symphony Hall in downtown San Francisco.
Wow.
I'm glad we covered that. On top of all of this, Stockton's own name was actually a mismatch of the two of his ancestors, Richard Stockton and Benjamin Rush, both of whom signed the Declaration of Independence back in 1776.
Wow. Some family.
Sure is.
So speaking of interesting, fascinating distant relatives, Stockton's later wife, pilot and teacher Wendy Whale, who would actually go on to work for OceanGate as well, was actually the great-great-granddaughter of Isidore and Rosa Lee Strauss, two of the wealthier passengers to have sadly perished as a result of the sinking of the Titanic. Isidore, who owed much of his fortune to being a co-owner of Macy's department store, is they're the couple that are very famously portrayed in James Cameron's movie, the Titanic movie, 1997, as the elderly couple who die in one another's arms in bed together. Do you remember them?
That made me tear up the first time I saw that scene.
That's a portrayal of Isidore and Rosa Lee. Very sad.
Yeah. Second time I was fine with it.
Oh, they had another scene together, but it didn't make the edit.
Oh.
Where she was offered a space on the boat and he said, where you go, I go. And then they probably went to bed.
Huh? Him going, Macy's department store's doing very well. And she's like, yeah, you've really done well in your career. Like, yeah, thanks so much. Shall we go outside, my love? That bit was quite a good bit in the film. Again? That bit. He was doing an impression of someone from England who couldn't do impressions of Americans. He was talking to her.
Makes sense.
Really, really interesting.
But yeah, fascinating family. Lots of ancestors that doing things.
I'm sure we all have lots of ancestors doing lots of things.
Yeah, but
you come from a long line of
Go on.
Oh, fucking hell, boy!
It's terrible.
It is terrible. Tell them to stop. As a youngster, Stockton had dreams of being an astronaut, which his family's fortune would, together with his intelligence and drive, certainly have been able to support him to accomplish. But Stockton had this dream specifically so that he'd become the first in history to explore the planet Mars. Famously, Mars was called Titan beforehand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would you, just out of interest, would you boys sign up for a Mars trip to start a colony?
No.
No.
Oh,
I feel like you would, Dan.
100%.
Yeah.
Sorry, Soph.
Was she not going with you?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I suppose she could actually.
Immediately ruled out.
Sorry, Soph. The dogs will love them. You bring the dogs with you. It sounds like you just planning to go there to fuck, the way you said it, to start colony. Just to populate Mars.
Actually, yeah, you'd have to do that, wouldn't you? Yeah. Mm.
Oh,
Have
well, that's
to.
going to change your mind, is it? Oh, that. Oh, not sure now. Oh, I'd hate that. Oh, did I get to pick your gums with me? Oh, God.
How long does it take to get there, Dan?
18 months.
Immediate, yeah.
But you have to wait for the planets to align, basically,
Yeah.
and fire yourself towards Mars, where Mars is going to be on the 18th month mark. You can't just shoot out there willy-nilly. You have to...
No, it's like a through pass,
What's that?
Tom. It's like when you play a pass in football, like ahead of someone, because
Someone
that's the
runs
way
onto
they're
it,
running. Yeah. It probably worked.
It's like shooting a moving target, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, I'd love to dissect that more, but I think maybe this isn't the place. Alongside his
One-way
fascination
ticket as well, because you can't really come back.
Yeah, and your bones would change, wouldn't they? Density.
Yes, yeah, muscle mass, bone density, everything's,
You
yeah.
become a wibbly wobbly man.
Yeah.
Probably.
Hopefully.
Just curly whirly arms. Alongside his fascination with outer space, Stockton was also passionate about the outdoors, nature, and exploring. At the age of 12, he went scuba diving for the first time, and from this moment onwards, he also developed a fascination with the ocean. A few years later, shortly after he turned 18 and had graduated from Phillips Exeter Academy private prep school, that's a long name, isn't it?
Long school. And I abbreviated PrEP.
He obtained his commercial pilot's license. Unfortunately, due to a slight issue with his sight, he was told that he would never qualify to become a pilot for the US military. Maybe that's, you can not, being colourblind means you can't fly, doesn't it?
I never tried. They didn't let me become a firefighter though. Hot and cold flame. Yeah, which actually makes a lot of sense because I'm terrible with fires.
I once applied to be a fighter jet pilot,
Oh.
and I got rejected because I got hay fever.
Such
Pathetic,
a
isn't it?
weird.
It's pathetic.
And that's, hay fever can come and go.
I think that's the thing. It can really affect, at random, it can affect your sight, your smell, your senses. And I get bad hay fever, to be fair, so I'm glad they rejected me because that could have been a disaster.
So I'm surprised that that's...
I guess a sneeze, you can do a lot with a sneeze, can't you? I was pouring some milk the other day and sneezed and it went all over the wall.
Oh, good effort there.
Thank you.
Did you just lose control of your arms?
Didn't have time I went to try and put the bottle down because I felt the sneeze coming, and in rushing to get the bottle down, I sort of had an accident.
Yeah.
And then I spilled the milk.
Beat me to it. Yeah. Wow, yeah, I would have thought the sense of smell isn't so important for a fighter. I smell danger for a fighter pilot. I would have thought that'd be such a thing. But yeah,
Well,
maybe
it's
the
more
vision.
the fact it's in your nose, isn't it? And it affects every sort of... When you get
And maybe
hay
just
fever,
moaning. You're very moany in your hay fever as well. That'd be annoying.
Yeah.
Oh, this war's bad, but also this
I got
hay
my
fever.
nose spray.
He later went on to get a Bachelor of Science degree in Aerospace Engineering from Princeton, before going on to get a Master of Business Administration from Berkeley.
Very prominent schools, these, and colleges. I feel like I just got to that. I'm rewatching The Sopranos and Meadows picking out colleges, and I feel like she went to all of these with Tony.
Definitely, yeah, she definitely went.
Yeah.
Did you see
Yeah.
the documentary's coming out in October?
Yeah, very excited about that.
Yeah.
So this school, this Phillips Exeter Academy private prep school, so many famous people have been there. A lot of notable folks. The top four ones I've gone for you. Quick run through: Mark Zuckerberg, Dewey from Malcolm in the Middle, Gore Vidal, and the singer of Old Crow Medicine Show, Ketch Secor. But a lot of athletes and politicians and stuff as well. I think probably most people would pick other people, but they were the ones that stood out to me. On his plans for his future, Stockton recalled,
I wanted to be an astronaut. That's why I got an engineering degree. I watched Star Trek, Star Wars, I had all the videos, and I wanted to see those alien life forms. Eventually, I realised, 1, I wasn't going to go to space, and 2, space has got such great views because in the vacuum of space, by definition, there is nothing. I realised that all the cool stuff I thought was out there is actually already here underwater. I completely disagree with that.
space has got such great views because in the vacuum of space, by definition, there is nothing. So he's saying the views are because there's nothing. Well, there is stuff there. You can see a lot of stuff.
Or maybe it's minimalistic. But like, yeah I don't know.
He's ticked Dan off with that.
Mm.
In 1989, Stockton claimed to have built an experimental plane that he flew as a hobby for most of his life. Whilst throughout most of his 20s and 30s, he worked as an F-15 flight test engineer for McDonnell Douglas. He also worked as a venture capitalist and as the manager of a tech startup called Remote Control Technologies. Apparently, he was the youngest F-15 flight test engineer in their history. During this time, he continued scuba diving on a regular basis all over the world, becoming particularly interested in the Puget Sound. In 2006, aged 44, Stockton went on his first dive in a submarine off the coast of British Columbia. From this moment onwards, he was hooked on underwater exploration. Almost immediately after this experience, Stockton started looking around to purchase a submersible of his own. He quickly realized that there were only around 80 privately owned submersibles in the world at that time, and very few owners were willing to sell. Also, I think the price was fairly steep and maybe put him off slightly, but the range that they were selling for at that time was between $5 and $40 million. As well as this, many of them simply could not dive to the depths that Stockton was hoping to go. As a way to mitigate this, Stockton decided to build a mini submersible of his own. And he did this using blueprints that were provided to him by a retired US Navy submarine commander. So he went away, built this sub, but he quickly realized that the sub itself could only dive to 10 meters. And so he continued to try and shop around and purchase one of his own, including, and this was a bit bleak, trying to buy adventurer and businessman Steve Fawcett's submersible just days after he'd died.
Damn.
Bad, isn't it?
Well, yeah, maybe leave it a little while.
I think it was just under a month.
The family probably want rid of it. Taking up a lot of room.
Just in the living room.
Yeah,
it's in the way now, isn't it?
Sounds like, yeah, I wanted to keep it remembering by, but I don't think I'm going to submerse myself that much.
I didn't want to go up to space as a tourist. I realised that I was never going to go to Jupiter or Mars. I never considered myself a tourist in any right. I wanted to be Captain Kirk on the Enterprise. There was so much more to offer and accomplish underwater. There was a potential for future life undersea for humans, and still so much more to chart and explore.
That does come across like a massive dork. If anyone's saying to me, I wanted to be Captain Kirk, and they're about to, take me in some machinery or some kind of thing to transport me somewhere, I don't think you're comfortable.
I think
No?
you will offend quite a lot of people with that comment.
I think that will, yeah.
Why?
Unless it was like get in the back of my van, I think that would make me feel uncomfortable.
I would quite like to be Captain
Even if I
Kirk.
went to an airport and then there's a pilot going, yeah, I want to be Captain Kirk, I won't think I'd rather not hear my pilot say that than...
I think, yeah, that's a better way to put it.
What's the offensive bit out what I said? He's a nerd. People like being nerds.
Yeah, but you said it like with some venom.
Yeah.
It sounds like a bit of a nerd.
Well, speaking of
There's nothing
other
wrong with
things
nerds.
in that,
No, but this guy sounds like a proper fucking nerd.
but the other part of the quote, underwater cities or underwater places for humans to live. What would you like? Jar Jar Binks, where he's from. See, bit of a nerd.
You
myself.
have a bit of Binks energy.
No, well, okay, that's fine.
Energy. Oh,
Yeah, Binks, I'm fine with that. He's my favourite, his best character by far. So.
Oh, really?
I think people hated him, didn't they?
Yeah, you're going to offend a lot of people with that comment.
Oh, Jesus. Oh,
Not the best character.
I thought he was literally voted the worst character ever to step foot in Star Wars.
that's not great.
Why is Jar Jar Binks hated? Why does everyone hate Jar Jar Binks? Is Jar Jar Binks that awful character? The wrongful villainization of Jar Jar Binks.
Wrongful. Yeah, wrongful.
Well, one person's opinion.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, a lot of people hating on him, but maybe, yeah.
Binks energy it is. I don't mind. I'm all right with that.
Okay,
And,
just
I
in
would-
one sentence, can you tell me why he's your favourite character? Out of all the characters in Star Wars you could choose.
Yeah, he's just a bit of an underdog.
He's not a dog.
He does save the day at one part, accidentally, of course. But yeah, he's just a breath of fresh air.
Just a good guy, yeah?
Yeah, everyone needs a Jar Jar.
Like a village idiot.
Well, I wouldn't go maybe that far, but yeah, on its way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd hate to sit next to him on a plane.
Yes, yeah. Especially if the captain had those fucking fake ears on. Yeah, I'm in the boat with you now.
Let us know down below if you like Jar Jar Binks.
Please. As he couldn't get his hands on a pre-owned submersible, Stockton did what any ordinary person would do. He decided to start his own submersible building company. Maybe. that would, in time, offer underwater oceanic tours. From his experiences and education, he believed he could build cost-effective and time-saving submersibles in order to cash in on what he believed was a significant opportunity for ocean tourism. As a result, he founded OceanGate in 2009 with his business partner, serial entrepreneur Guillermo Solheim. But the pair still had to stay within the regulated 150-metre depth limit for any vessels they built, which seemed to grate them.
It's a bit weird that him going, he can't get his hands on a pre-owned one. It was like, okay, well, I can't do that, so I'm just going to make my own, which, you know, I admire the entrepreneur side of that and, like, you know, but yeah, I don't know. Just, I know he's an engineer. Yeah, arrogant. And yeah, if he can't afford it and he said this is going to be cheaper to do, it feels a bit like that. Doesn't add up in my head, but with all the stringent testing that needs to be done to it.
Yes, yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, we will.
Testing's crazy, man.
Their plan was to initially focus on underwater tourist excursions in popular holiday destinations in order to generate the money required to build submersibles capable of diving to greater depths, thus creating what Stockton and Guillermo referred to as the SpaceX of the oceans, with the ultimate goal being able to offer expeditions to dive to the wreck of the Titanic. Stockton's new dream was to revolutionise underwater tourism and travel to a similar extent that Elon Musk, Richard Branson and even Jeff Bezos had done so with aviation and space exploration.
So yeah, Rush, yeah, very much, yeah. He saw himself as the extra, his name's handy as well, the extra head on Mount Rushmore, so alongside those three.
What, Elon Musk, Branson and Bezos?
Yeah, just
they're not
in
on
terms
there,
of,
are they?
No, but his own like sort of explorative, game-changing Rushmore. He put the Rush in it, and those three would be the more.
Are you trying to crowbar in a little play on words with your own thing that doesn't exist?
Yeah, they hate Jar Jar.
they fucking do.
Yeah.
The village idiot.
In a presentation to the Explorers Club, Stockton said the following: "I'd like to say that if you stopped someone on the street and said name 3 things in the deep ocean, they're going to say sharks, whales, and the Titanic. Everything else is a distant second, or fourth." I even read an article that said there are 3 words in the English language which are known throughout the entire planet. That's Coca-Cola, God, and Titanic.
I think Coca-Cola and God, yeah, I'd agree with. I don't think Titanic's there.
It's pretty famous though, isn't it?
I bet McDonald's would score above it.
I would probably agree with that.
Starbucks?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Jar Jar.
Nah.
Yeah.
No one knows. So even if you say to me, name 3 things deep in the ocean, sharks, whales, and the Titanic.
Jellyfish.
Yeah, or the rare squid.
Oh yeah,
Ooh.
Giant squid.
Yeah, that fight sperm whales.
Getting that sperm.
All over the beak. In the first year of founding the company, OceanGate managed to purchase their first submersible, Antipodes.
Antipodes. But it is spelled Antipodes, yeah.
Dirty knees, Antipodes. Yeah. They purchased the 36-year-old 5-person sub for $295,000. 5-person sub. That's what you ordering it, Ben. Which could dive to 305 Which could dive to 305 meters to 1,000 feet.
Getting there.
Deep, isn't it?
Deep.
Stockton and his team used Antipodes as a test run to explore the wreck of the SS Governor, also known as the Mini Titanic. There were rumours that the wreck had sunk with $4 million worth of gold coins in storage. However, this has not been confirmed, and Stockton and his team claimed that they were not searching for lost treasures. But if you were there, you'd have a look, wouldn't you?
You surely would have a little look, yeah.
If there's a little swag bag there, you're like, I'm not there for that, no. After this, OceanGate's team searched the far deeper wreck of the SS Montebello, a US oil tanker that was struck by a Japanese torpedo off the coast of California during World War II. The tanker sank with more than 70,000 barrels of oil on board, all likely to one day emanate into the ocean. OceanGate provided an updated 3D map of the wreck with their cutting-edge sonar technology, allowing them to support the avoidance of a potential environmental disaster. So that's great.
Yeah, the way I saw this was this Rush, really, because that was his first, they got some television time for the search of the SS Governor, but then when they got interviewed about this work with the SS Montebello, you could see his eyes light up with how much, I think the celebrity element was quite a big driver for him. And obviously they are doing great work. It's not to poo-poo on their work. This is a
poo on their work, man. They've just done it.
Yeah. But yeah, I think you can see as the time goes on, he loves being in front of the camera, I feel.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Over the following decade, to generate some buzz for OceanGate, Stockton opted to collaborate with the Discovery Channel, as well as the musician Macklemore. The unlikely collaboration of OceanGate and Macklemore was born, and they teamed up to dive in the Antipodes in search of the incredibly rare 6-gill shark. This later formed part of Shark Week and Discovery. Yeah, when you're in America, they always bang on about Shark Week. It's a big thing.
Great.
You just say bloody great.
Yeah, I love Shark Week, yeah.
The interactions between Macklemore and Stockton are quite awkward, but it makes for an interesting watch. And to the joy of all involved, they did manage to see and document the very rarely observed 6-gill shark.
Macklemore tries to be sort of the edgy guy in the conversation, and Stockton is very serious. And there's a bit where Macklemore's very, very innocently asking, Stockton, what's the probability we might find this shark? And he goes, Stockton just straight away, probably somewhere between 0 to 100. And Macklemore's just like, you rotter.
That's a terrible answer from Stockton, and it's terrible banter.
Terrible.
They're quite cute, the 6-gill shark.
Yeah. Doesn't look as scary as I expected, being, you have to dive quite deep to find them. It's quite sweet. Was that a baby one, Dan?
I don't know, actually. They all look pretty small. Put it in the pond.
As Stockton and Guillermo now had buzz, investors, experience, and a reputation generated for OceanGate, they turned their sights to the world's most famous underwater location.
Atlantis.
The wreck of the Titanic. Tom has argued that Atlantis probably should be the golden spot there.
I think so.
Yeah. Or Jar Jar's home. What is Jar Jar's home? I'm going to stop mentioning Jar Jar now because that pisses people off.
I think.
No. They initially set a price of $250,000 per ticket, and in the process they would make their customers mission specialists rather than tourists and use international waters as a significant legal loophole. However, as the industry standard would not allow them to acquire a submersible that could dive to those depths and be used for the purposes of ocean tourism, they did what any logical businessman would do, and they decided to build their own. And thus was built Cyclops 1, which could dive to 500 meters or 1,600 feet. And later, Cyclops 2, later renamed Titan, which could dive to 4,000 meters or 13,200 feet. And the wreck of the Titanic sits at 3,800 meters or 12,500 feet. So obviously, very, very deep. And now, they've built 2 of their own submersibles that can go deeper than what is, within the regulations limit. I always was fascinated because it never seems real how deep the ocean can actually get. And even at its deepest point, it's like more than twice as deep as where the Titanic sits. I found this little interactive depth map and it is crazy. So I'll pop it in our Facebook group because it would take us about 5-10 minutes to do during the episode. But
basically, you can scroll down.
You scroll down, it tells a story and it shows you all the different depths. I couldn't believe how deep an emperor penguin can dive. It's mad.
This is awesome.
And the deepest point that humans ever been, and it just gradually gets darker, shows you different levels. But I will pop the link to that in our Facebook group because it's fascinating viewing. Wow. I thought it could be quite cool to have on screen and talk through it, but it would just take ages.
I'm at 2.5 meters, 2,500 meters even. Sorry.
Oh, so, yeah. I thought you were still in the shallows. So at this point, Stockton and his team quickly realized that time, money, regulation, and testing were 4 huge factors with regards to building and operating deep-sea submersibles. To negate all of this, they broke the majority of the rules and started working fully outside the box on their submersibles.
Meters now.
Is it dark yet or not?
Yeah, probably dark.
It's dark, boy.
Beef tam.
I've just gone past the fang tooth.
Oh, have you?
Yeah. Anglerfishers creep in there.
So they're having some fun with that map right now, guys. Check out our Facebook group. I Could Murder a Podcast listeners and discussion group on Facebook.
There's a faceless fish here.
Field trip doesn't look too heavy.
It's the bit when you go past the Titanic that starts to scare me, the things that you start seeing. And you go way past the Titanic as well. Again, I'll pop the map in the Facebook group.
Oh, there's the commitment fish.
So at this point, him and his team were fully outside the box when they were working on their submersibles. The trouble is, as Stockton once put it, when you think and work outside the box, sometimes it's difficult to see exactly how far out of the box you are. Whilst many were quick to argue, when you think and work too far outside the box, you will usually and very quickly find out why the box was there in the first place.
There's a limit. At some point, safety is just pure waste. That is mad. I mean, if you just want to be safe, don't get out of bed. Don't get in your car. Don't do anything. At some point, you're going to take some risk, and it really is a risk-reward question. I think you can do this just as safely by breaking the rules. I don't think it's very dangerous. If you look at submersible activity over the last 3 decades, there hasn't even been a major injury, let alone a fatality. The arrogance in that is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild, a few of those lines there.
Safety is just pure waste. I beg to differ.
I think you can do this just as safely by breaking the rules. I mean, I understand we live in a time where health and safety is probably bordering on too far in some instances, but yeah, that's baffling. What Stockton made reference to at the end is in fact true, and a reputable submersible designer and builder named Will Conan, one of the lead opposers to what Stockton and his team were doing, backed this up. He stated that, as of 2024, there are just short of 200 active submersibles, though 500 have been built across the world since 1960. Many of them have broken or have been retired. Of those 200, there are 9 submersibles in the world that can dive up to 4,000 meters or deeper, to the depth of the wreck of the Titanic. Since 1975, there hasn't been a single catastrophe in the industry. Though the events we're about to discuss doubled the total fatalities of the submersible industry since it started 60 years ago. There were 5 between 1960 and 1974, and there would be 5 more on the 18th of June 2023.
So yeah, I mean, those 5 between 1960 and 1974 occurred when people had never been in submarines or submersibles before. So this was like, I don't know, I don't want to degrade it, but people trying to go very, very far deep in like a wooden barrel. That's probably degrading it, actually. These fatalities would occur in the experimentation stage when no one had done this before. There were no rules and regulations in place. That's probably what I should have said. I think I got the wooden barrel out of someone that actually jumped off Niagara Falls in a wooden barrel. So that's where that's come from.
I think the arrogance of just saying, well, there hasn't been any fatalities since X, so we can afford to break some rules and cut some corners because why not? You know, we're overthinking this. Yeah. But it's obviously an insanely dangerous thing to do. So why would you want to risk that?
Well, the exact reason there haven't been fatalities is because of how highly regulated it is. And that's owed to the people that have followed the rules. He's now talking about just completely disregarding their rules.
Why not take pride in that in your own industry and just carry that forward instead of being like, nah, we don't need to do that?
Yeah.
Thanks, energy, mate.
They're all okay underwater, I think. So.
Before we jump into the timeline, we wanted to share a few more direct quotes from Stockton Rush because it does make for some pretty jarring listening, and there were too many for us that we couldn't leave out. The quotes also back up the many comparisons made between the fates of Titan and the Titanic, the design flaws, the safety flaws, and both of them having captains who ignored repeated warnings. Stockton and his team built Titan predominantly using carbon fibre, titanium and acrylic. He claimed it had been built in partnership and collaboration with experts from NASA, Boeing and the University of Washington. All of these organisations would later distance themselves from the partnerships before outright denying it, despite OceanGate listing them as partners on their website.
I've grown tired of industry players who try to use a safety argument to stop innovation and new entrants from entering their small existing market. Since Guillermo and I started OceanGate, we have heard the baseless cries of, "You're going to kill someone," way too often. I take this as a serious personal insult. There hasn't been an injury in the commercial sub-industry in over 35 years. It's obscenely safe.
It's getting more irritating.
Yeah.
So the sub itself, the Titan, was fitted with many now infamous off-the-shelf elements, including numerous supplies, lighting and rigging from Camper World, and the entire vessel was operated via a $30 wireless Logitech video game controller. It was the only submersible in the world with a or quote-unquote usable toilet. I think it just had like a little shower curtain partition, and Stockton claimed when giving a tour to a journalist that it only had one button that you needed to worry about, and this was a start-stop button fitted near the rear panel. None of it was tested to a regulated level. Which again, to go back to Will Conan, who was one of the lead criticizers of the work that Stockton was doing, he said that they would have required the following 3 things to do appropriate testing, which I find this part fascinating, how vigorously they test these devices. And obviously they have to, it's people's lives at the end of the day. But number 1, you have to implode or blow up 5 versions of the vessel to see which pressure it crushes under. The second one is putting it under constant pressure, 6 times the design pressure, for a continuous period of 3 months. And they do this to see if not only just a one-off pressure causes it to implode or warp, they would keep it continuous to see if it warps or deforms or collapses or implodes. And if that wasn't enough testing, finally you have to put the vessel under a full pressure cycle, a total of 1,000 times. OceanGate did none of these things to save significant time and money, and in total they would have potentially saved 2 years worth of time and over $3 million. Despite already having between $20 to $30 million invested into the company, and also money coming in from future ticket sales.
Yeah, I mean, I was about to say, like, with, you know, the 4 people, apart from him on the thing, that's already $1 million.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's not like you have to sell many of the journeys to, you know, I know 2 year time is money as well, in terms of the money they could be earning from people being on there, but it obviously is a money spinner. He's doing it to make money, but it doesn't seem like that's the leading thing he wants to do. He just wants to be able to do this experience of people and kind of like, I don't know.
It's too eager.
Yes. Because, I mean, there was no one, as far as I'm aware, it wasn't very easy to go and see the Titanic unless you were a scientist or someone working as part of the salvage rights company, which, again, salvage rights to me I can't get my head around that. But in terms of like, and they couldn't even call their customers tourists because that would not have permitted them to complete the dives. So he labeled them as mission experts. But yeah, I mean, the testing, that is like a very rigorous set of tests that you have to put your vessel through, and they didn't do a single one of them.
I would say, like, and this is where I'm sure I'll come under criticism, the tests do seem like going on for 3 months, 3 months solid, is excessive, because it's like, it's not going to be, for a solid period of time, that's never going to happen to the actual ship, isn't it? So don't think that's necessary, but I get the 5 versions and all that stuff, but yeah.
I guess it's to obviously cover them for like the constant dive. So I think they obviously had to get to the location. It's very difficult to get in a large, slow ship, so it takes them a couple of days to get there. I think they're doing like, I think it was seasonal that they were offering these dives as well. So it was maybe only like 2 or 3, sometimes 4 or 5 a year max. So they weren't, I see what you're saying, but I think it was that constant pressure is very different to like the one-off pressure, and it needs to be able to sustain pressure for extended periods of time. So I think it's just, they have a very heavy outline that you need to follow.
I think it's good to test the absolute limits of something, isn't it? It's all well and good testing a car that travels 60 miles an hour, but you're going to test it 120 to see how the safety systems come on and how the tyres react or something.
I agree with that, but if the car's never going to be put in a situation like that, it's never going to be submersed for that long, 3 months at that pressure. I agree with the whole point, like 5 imploding or blowing up, that seeing where the limits are and stuff like that completely makes sense to me. But I just think 3 months seems a bit excessive, but probably this discussion about it as well as
Stockton.
Yeah. In 2018, former OceanGate Director of Marine Operations, David Lockridge, wrote a 10-page report outlining over a dozen flaws in the design and build of Titan. He addressed this 10-page report to Stockton Rush. Unsurprisingly, Rush was not very happy about this. He simply dismissed it, and David Lockridge concluded his report with the following.
Until suitable corrective actions are in place and closed out, Titan should not be manned during any of the upcoming trials.
Included in this report were numerous pictures of warped carbon fibre on the hull. There were burn marks shown on the rigging, as well as bits of rigging that seemed to be fallen apart slightly or warped away from the actual vessel itself, as well as numerous weak and uncertified broken external components. And there's this image that I'll pop up for you now, which is basically a timeline of the different warnings that Stockton Rush were given. As well as this, Titan and OceanGate had no emergency measures that were typical for submersibles, and a way to do this was either by taking an additional submersible with them or remote operated submersible that could also dive to the same depths as Titan, and this would be in case of emergency. So it was going to some parts of the ocean that were deeper than any Navy submarines or rescue submarines could get to, so they were advised to take another submersible with you that can get to those depths in case a rescue is needed. Stockton didn't like that idea, so instead he claimed that their acoustic and real-time monitoring system would suffice. Lockridge argued that these systems would, quote, only show when a component is about to fail, often milliseconds before an implosion, and could not detect existing flaws in the hull before it was far too late. So not only was David Lockridge terminated from the company, but he was also sued by Stockton for his criticisms. He countersued and the pair settled out of court. Despite all of these concerns and massive red flags and warning signs, Stockton proceeded with the Titanic trials.
I'd like to be remembered as an innovator. I think it was General MacArthur who said, "You're remembered for the rules you break," and I've broken some rules to make this. I think I've broken them with logic and good engineering behind me. Carbon fibre and titanium. There's a rule that you don't do that. Well, I did. If you're not breaking things, you're not innovating. If you're operating in a known environment, as most submersible manufacturers do, they don't break things. To me, the more stuff you've broken, the more innovative you've been.
So at this point, Stockton is ignoring or looking away from all this advice or warnings that are being sent towards him. He's very much taking that as motivation and fuel to carry on doing what he's doing. He's sold out seasons worth of explorative dives to the Titanic, and it's going to get to a point now where he would make headlines for all the wrong reasons. And it's here that we move to the timeline of the Titan submersible disaster.
March 2018, Rob McCallum, a major deep-sea exploration expert, sent Stockton Rush the following email.
I implore you to take every care in your testing and sea trials and to be very, very conservative. I think you are potentially placing yourself and your clients in a dangerous dynamic. In your race to Titanic, you are mirroring that famous catch cry, "She is unsinkable."
Stockton, via OceanGate, responded to this email with a threat of legal action. Shortly after this, Stockton received another email with research diagrams attached, this time from an engineer working for Boeing, who had been involved in the early designs of Titan, by the name of Mark Negley. He said, "We think you are at a high risk of a significant failure at or before you reach 4,000 metres. We do not think you have any safety margin." Attached to the email was a depth strain graph of Titan based on the design, and it had a red line as well as a skull and crossbones indicated at 4,000 metres. So yeah, that's really clear.
Even I would get that as don't go there.
I hope so.
Skull and crossbones.
Any ordinary human would perhaps listen to the constructive criticism or advice, but not Stockton, who's only angered or motivated by it. He's very much someone I think reverse psychology would have worked with him. Stockton, you don't have the minerals to do the safety tests. And you're like, yeah, I do. As if this wasn't bad enough, Stockton then received a letter from William Conan on behalf of the submarine group, the Marine Technology Society. And in the letter, Conan said,
"This letter is sent on behalf of our industry members who have collectively expressed unanimous concern regarding the development of Titan and the planned Titanic expeditions. Our apprehension is that the current experimental approach adopted by OceanGate could result in negative outcomes, from minor to catastrophic, that would have serious consequences for everyone in the industry. Your representation is, at minimum, misleading to the public and breaches an industry-wide professional code of conduct we all endeavour to uphold. Together, we are all beneficiaries of the excellent safety record of MUV operations over the years, but each one of us is also a steward with a responsibility to sustain this achievement."
Which I think is totally fair.
Totally.
They're all obviously, it was declared, one of the most safe vehicles, or it's safer than a car, plane, helicopter, anything like that. And they've worked for many years to have regulations that are able to uphold that. So yeah, they had a very good safety record before Stockton Rush came along, and now increasingly more concerned by his behaviours and what he's, and he's, as Dan said at the start of the episode, very vocal about what he's doing, the rules he's breaking, and the corners that he's cut.
Rush by name, rush by nature. According to the Passenger's Way, the Titan only reached the Titanic's depth on 13 of its 90 dives, which would give OceanGate a success rate of 14% amidst all of the other criticisms. So I don't get that. So they have tested it out that many times.
I think it's actually getting to that depth, though. They had a few dives where there was underwater currents, adverse vision or ability to see a certain distance beyond them. I mean, there are all sorts of different reasons. Obviously, weather plays a big factor as well. But yeah, it only actually got to the Titanic 13 times. But I guess, as Tom said, it's done 90 dives. The thing is, people with much better scientific minds than myself would tell you that
yourself down.
Cheers. That carbon fibre over time. Yeah, that's why I think maybe going back to that one where they said they kept it in a pressurized environment for 3 months, because they're doing 90 dives here over a period of years, that's having more and more impact on the carbon fibre hull. And yeah, it's like you see them when they're taping. Do you see the video of them making it? Where it's like it's essentially tape. It's like composite, isn't it? That they're taping round. I mean, even it's a stupid example to give, but if you cover a package in sellotape, over time that the air will get to the sellotape, that's a really bad example. But like the way that they do it, I'm trying to explain that like over time it's going to have lots of little cracks and ripples, and the slightest hole, the slightest pinpoint is going to cause an implosion.
There was reports on these dives of people hearing cracking all the time, and so that is obviously the ship manipulating and moving and like having carbon fiber. I know it's strong and light, but it just makes zero sense to in my head to use that material.
There you go. Despite all of this, we move forward to the 18th of June 2023. Having left Newfoundland 2 days prior, the Polar Prince, a Canadian icebreaker ship, lowers the Titan on its launch and recovery platform into the North Atlantic Ocean. Its passengers and crew are then carried out to the platform by dinghies from the Polar Prince. The water is unusually choppy and freezing cold. That's a bit weird. According to a final Instagram post the night before from passenger Hamish Harding, this was the perfect opportunity to dive. On the post, he said,
"Due to the worst winter in Newfoundland in 40 years, this mission is likely to be the first and only manned mission to the Titanic in 2023. A weather window has just opened up and we are going to attempt a dive tomorrow."
So the passengers, or mission specialists as OceanGate labelled them, were 61-year-old Stockton Rush, 77-year-old Paul-Henri Nargelet, 58-year-old Hamish Harding, 48-year-old Shahzada Dawood, as well as 19-year-old Suleiman Dawood. And they are now placed into the carbon fiber hull. The seal is placed on, and they are drilled into that, like a sealed, fully sealed into the submersible. And the only exit for them will be 8 hours later at the surface when crew members unscrew them from the chamber. The one I really feel, not that I have empathy for all of them, perhaps slightly less so with Stockton, but the son, Suleiman. Like, apparently it was supposed to be his mum's ticket, and he didn't really want to go on there, but his dad sort of encouraged him to go on this adventure with him, and he was quite reluctant and scared of it, didn't have as much of an interest in it as his father. And it was only by chance that he ended up taking the mother's place on the Titan, which I just find that so upsetting.
I think I've read somewhere it was partly like a Father's Day kind of thing as well. Yeah. So he kind of did it as a bit of a Father's Day nod as well, yeah. But they did a lot of like extreme things together, adventures together, but yeah, this is one that he was not too keen on, but yeah, very sad.
Do you boys suffer from claustrophobia, or are you okay with small spaces? Because I know you can't, obviously there's not going to be any fire escapes in a submersible, but the idea of being locked into a small tiny tube is for me terrifying.
Yeah, for 8 hours or so at
can't do anything, can't go anywhere.
I don't know, I think I've kind of, if I get my head about it, then yeah, but I think I'll probably be not too bad.
If I was on my own, I'd be fine. But 4 other people to worry about would probably annoy me after a while.
Are you farting would annoy them probably?
No, I won't eat.
You won't eat?
Oh, I just keep a nice empty
stomach.
Yeah,
imagine someone going to the toilet behind that.
Yeah, Ben shitting behind the curtain, yeah. Imagine that.
Not me as an example there.
I haven't eaten anything for 2 days. Oh, right, mate, well, what the fuck is all that then? Beans.
Yeah, claustrophobic scale, Dan, probably somewhere in the middle.
On the fence.
Yeah, that idea of the idea of being sealed in is, that's terrifying. So the submersible is then lowered into the water and released from its platform. It then proceeds with what should be a 2 to 3 hour descent to the Titanic wreck, nearly 4,000 meters down on the ocean floor. 1 hour and 45 minutes pass without issue, but then Titan becomes completely unresponsive. The Coast Guard is alerted a staggering 8 hours after the mothership first lost contact with the submersible. As there were no additional emergency submersibles or robot submersibles on the ship, all the crew could do was sit waiting, praying for a response. They did not call the Coast Guard sooner because they were waiting for the potential chance that Titan may have resurfaced after the anticipated 8-hour dive. Different statements that I've read suggest that they knew immediately that there was a serious problem. There have been scripts leaked that claim to be legit, but I think they've been disproven of like the communications between Polar Prince and Titan, and it is terrifying reading. There's a lot of it available on YouTube, people sort of reenacting them. But I think the more hopeful crew members and obviously family members that were on board the Polar Prince assumed that maybe communications have just failed and they'll be back up in 8 hours and we don't have anything to worry about. I think there was a real mixed reaction on board the mothership.
can only think that they're just going, oh, no, like that kind of like, oh no, it'll be fine, like not wanting to believe the worst. But yeah, I mean, 8 hours is a long time.
There was a previous incident as well where another passenger said that they went on a dive to Titanic with Stockton as the pilot, and it became stuck near the Atlantic seabed for 2 hours before they actually managed to get it off. It was like some debris that was holding it in place, and it managed to remove itself from there. But that's the thing I don't get, is they're diving to depths that only at the time, 9 other submersibles can get to, and none of them are anywhere near you at the time you're down there. So if something like that happens, your machinery fails when you're down there, what you've got 96 hours, but it takes 2 days to get there.
Going to be hot in there and sticky.
Well, I think it gets cold.
Get very cold, actually, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm talking about in the head.
You go so...
Good save. So as they soon start to realize that, Titan isn't going to resurface and it is not simply a communications failure, they then make the decision to contact the Coast Guard. There was other statements suggested that the Titan was actually towed 400 nautical miles along the back of the Polar Prince as well, prior to the dive, which would have meant that it was given a lot of additional stress and impact during the tow to the dive spot, to the dive location, because of the waves. But then I've seen video footage of it being on the back of the Polar Prince as well, so I'm not sure. There is other footage out there of it being towed, which again makes no sense to me if you're trying to preserve the structural integrity of it all.
So I think that's quite an important point, actually, because it's 8 hours to alert the Coast Guard. I think that's unbelievable. But do you think that's, again, an arrogance within the team, or just pure panic? Or do you think actually they're thinking, no, everything's fine, we just literally lost radio contact, they'll resurface at some point soon? What do you think is happening there? Because it's a long time.
I don't also know what may have played a factor in this, what their protocol is for situations like that, because they don't have any other rescue vessels on there. It's not attached to any kind of line.
Like Abe Simpson was like, to Bart, pull the rope 48 times if you're safe, 47 if you're not. I think they might have had the conversation prior to this, and he might have said, the signal might be lost at some points, don't worry about it. Like, it could happen. Like, it's been a long journey for us going down there anyway. Like, only worry if it's been a certain amount of time. We're not privy to that conversation prior.
Knowing Stockton from what we've discussed so far, what I would imagine as well is they're already not in everyone's best books. They're not following, they're not regulated to any extent. They're using the loophole of mission specialists rather than tourists and international waters. So he's probably thinking, if anything, don't call them. We don't want to be a problem for the Coast Guard. Don't call them. We don't need their help. We'll sort it ourselves. When, you're absolutely right, Dan. It should have happened a lot sooner.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, this might be an ignorant comment from me, but realistically, if they called the Coast Guard about this and they were like, a long way down, what did the Coast Guard have things that would actually be able to save them in this instance, and how far they're out as well by the response time?
So none of they're too deep for any of like your Navy submersibles to get to. They're already far too deep for that kind of rescue. The only way, I believe, is either you get another deep sea submersible there, but they're scattered all over the world, or you get one of those remote remote operated submersibles, but that's still going to take you 2 days to get it there. And they've got 96 hours oxygen.
I mean, I think Stockton would have said, like, we might lose signal, only panic after a certain period of time.
I remember seeing a video as well that Stockton was explaining all like the safety devices that deploy from the submersible, weights dropping off the sub and all that. So maybe his team thought, well, if they are actually in trouble, all they need to do is just to deploy the weights or get rid of the weights, and they'll just fly up to the top. So maybe there wasn't panic at all.
If they, obviously we know the outcome, but that's also because this was what a big part of the news was about. They were focusing more on the story before everything came out about OceanGate. The story of 5 people, 3 of them millionaires, being stuck somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, deep in a really hostile environment. And it kind of reminded me a bit of that Chilean miners case, when they had to rescue the miners. Yeah. But they had no technology there. They were racing to get all these other, deep sea robots over there to try and help. And it was, we'd already had the outcome before, obviously, the rescue could really start to take place.
When the Titan did not submerge, the gravity of the situation became apparent for the crew members, as well as the family members waiting aboard the Polar Prince. The Coast Guard triggered a large-scale search and rescue operation in the remote North Atlantic, recognising the extreme depths involved and the limited 96-hour oxygen supply aboard the Titan. International rescue teams, including the Canadian Coast Guard and several private vessels, joined the desperate effort. Aircraft scoured the surface for any signs of the submersible, while ships deployed sonar equipment in hopes of locating the Titan's exact position beneath the waves. It would take an agonising 2 days for the submersible salvage equipment to get there, and it was far too deep for any kind of US Navy rescue. As the hours passed, hope waned and the search intensified. Underwater robots called remotely operated vehicles, or I like to call them ROVs, were sent down to explore the depths near the last known location of the Titan. There were rumours of knocking sounds that quickly filled social media. I remember that. They could hear the knocking sounds. And news stations all over the world. Memes were also made of the situation, with much of the Western world facing the cost of living crisis. Some social media users actually laughed at the situation and had very little pity or sympathy for them. Like that of the passengers aboard the Titanic, there was somewhat of a disparity of reaction between the rich and the poor. Yeah, this was another one of those. I remember that. Lots of memes going out there, lots of people having a giggle about it. Which, yeah, I mean, people can spend their money how they want to spend their money. I do find it a bit like the amount of money being spent. Like if people go like try and climb mountains and they're like millionaires and they get stuck and loads of money spent on saving them. I'm a bit like, that's just slightly aggravating. But yeah, it's when people are in that situation, families are involved, and family members are seeing the social media and seeing their loved ones being mocked. Yeah, I remember that. It was all there was very divided opinion, and it seemed to be there was quite a lot of negative reaction to the situation. It basically suggesting that because they have the money to do something like this, they kind of deserved the outcome that they were faced with. But it was some of them are pretty horrific, some of these memes. Despite the challenges posed by the ocean's darkness and the immense pressure at such depths, rescuers work around the clock, hoping to locate the submersible in time. Meanwhile, new reports of mysterious underwater noises as well as foreign sonar detected objects provided a flicker of hope, suggesting the crew might still be alive, trapped but signalling for help. However, due to the vastness of the search area, as well as the unforgiving nature of the deep sea, the search and rescue mission was becoming increasingly dire. The search for the Titan, now a race against 96 hours, captivated the world, with the fate of its passengers hanging in the balance. But that fate had been sealed long before the rescue mission even started.
See, for me, it's like you said, Tom. I think people can spend their money how they want to spend their money, and it's just because you're rich, doesn't mean you deserve to die or be killed in that way. But for me, it was the media frenzy around the 96 hours that got a little bit crazy for me. That
some of them even had like oxygen countdowns, didn't they?
Like countdowns and timelines. I just found it I think the media knew that was a perfect way to just capture people's attention for the next 96 hours. And I felt that was a little bit.
Because the other thing in the news as well, days before the Titan incident off the coast of Greece, a fishing boat sank whilst carrying an estimated 400 to 750 migrants, and 100 of those were confirmed to have died in the incident, and it got very little news time in comparison. I guess it wasn't, as Dan said, the media couldn't really take that story and run with it and make it as kind of Hollywood or glamorized as they had done with this Titan situation. Like, you've got 3 millionaires, the most knowledgeable expert on the Titanic in the world, and one of the individual's sons trapped in this vessel somewhere underwater near the wreck of the Titanic, which saw a similar fate. It's like you couldn't write that type of story, could you?
I mean, it's a similar thing people say to like how Madeleine McCann gets more press than other missing children. It's a perfectly packaged thing for the media to absolutely go for. Yeah, which is sad. And like, any kind of missing child or any kind of tragedy should get the same amount of press time. But the titles and the headlines they went with, they saw dollar signs.
Yeah. 22nd of June 2023. 4 days after Titan went missing, after a multinational sea and air rescue mission, the Canadian Coast Guard confirmed that debris matching that of the submersible had been discovered approximately 1,600 feet from the Titanic wreckage. It was consistent with the effects of an implosion. The identified debris consisted of the tail cone, not part of the pressure vessel, and the forward and aft end bells. Both parts of the pressure vessel intended to protect the crew from the ocean environment. Rear Admiral John Mulger confirmed the following in a press conference. The debris is consistent with the catastrophic loss of the pressure chamber. The size of the debris field is also consistent with that of an implosion in the water. It was found in an incredibly unforgiving environment.
So that last line, it was found in an incredibly unforgiving environment. He said that back to someone asking, did you find the bodies? Were you able to retrieve the bodies? And that was his answer. It was found in an incredibly unforgiving environment. And yeah, there's been lots of like graphics or animations created on what the implosion would have looked like, some of them in incredibly graphic detail. And there would have been very little to have been able to bring back, unfortunately.
So the implosion duration is being estimated to be 20 milliseconds. So, obviously extremely quickly. And the brain pain response is 150 milliseconds. So the implosion was actually roughly 7 times faster than it would be for them to actually, the brain to actually respond and feel any pain from the event itself. So that's probably the only thing that the families could take any solace from, was the fact that the family members wouldn't have felt, any pain whatsoever. It would have been over within an instant, especially with such a horrific way of dying. Can't think of many scarier ways, really.
Did you guys ever see that leaked transcript of the supposed communications with the Polar Prince and the Titan?
It was on YouTube, wasn't it, for a while?
I think it has been debunked. Obviously, all those tapping sounds have been debunked, but there was like someone, and they must have been someone that knows something about the industry, because there was this YouTuber, I was watching loads of his stuff at the time, and he was like a former, he'd invented various machinery to support submersibles, and he was a very smart guy, and he was saying he did like a read through of the transcript, and he was trying to estimate how deep they were when the implosion happened and when they lost contact. And he although he was a very intelligent and well experienced guy, he even felt that it was a legitimate transcript, but basically the transcript suggested they knew they were in trouble for around 10 minutes before the implosion, which is absolutely horrifying, isn't it? But obviously that's has been debunked, so there's no way of knowing whether they knew it was going to happen or whether it just happened. And obviously I would hope for their sakes it just happened and they didn't know about it, rather than, can you imagine that anxiety knowing that there's something wrong and maybe hearing some cracks, knowing you've lost contact with the mothership? It's horrific.
I wonder if that did happen and they had maybe 10-20 minutes of these signs, if like even Stockton realised he was in trouble, or if he was so blinded by his himself that he thought, no, it's fine, these sounds happen or whatever, or if he actually realised something's not quite right here.
Here's a more moral question. If you're Stockton and you know that those noises are going to lead to what it leads to, because you'd know that they'd be over like that, like quickly, would you bother telling people, or would you just say, oh yeah, they're just normal, just they're not panicking and not having that anxiety, and he knows it's going to happen, but you don't want to?
I think there's no way, if I was in Stockton's situation, to turn around and be like, it's time.
So this is,
you would just kind of keep calm and not mention anything. Because if, like you say, Tom, if you know it's going to be instant, but you know it's going to happen, then why cause panic?
Yeah.
There was other things I saw that suggest like cracks aren't like that much of a thing to worry about. Like the sound of cracking is apparently, and again, this is one interview, I'm basing this off, but someone said, because even James Cameron, when he did that, I can't remember what the sub that he was in, he went down the Mariana Trench, and there were cracks even there. And he explained that, he kept very, very calm. But
in that thing that you showed, Ben, earlier with when you can scroll down the depths, one of the teams in that, the window cracked when they're going down. They carried on going further and further, and they were able to keep going. So
I think you're right. I think these subs do move and bend and crack. But when you're talking about a machine that's built from carbon fibre and just kind of screwed on end to end with 2 caps, cracks in that environment are quite worrying.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about an actual designed, proper, legitimate sub, I think it's okay.
Yeah, like a crack on a big lorry isn't as scary as a crack on a little egg.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's bang on, actually.
Online it says cracking in a submersible isn't a worrying noise. It's different to the sound of delamination or deformation. The sub apparently made cracking noises even near the surface, but one crackle too many was apparently a thing to worry about.
So as Tom mentioned, the implosion killed all 5 occupants within milliseconds. At the time of recording, August 2024, the US Coast Guard, the Canadian Transportation Safety Board, as well as the governing maritime bodies of the UK and France, are all investigating the incident in order to get a comprehensive idea of how the deaths occurred. On August 6, 2024, Nargile's family sued OceanGate for wrongful death. OceanGate has since closed its website and all of its social media accounts, with the only message relaying, OceanGate has suspended all exploration and commercial operations. The rescue mission itself has, to date, cost more than $7.5 million of taxpayers' money. The incident renewed past debates about whether taxpayers should bear the cost of search and rescue missions involving wealthy persons engaged in high-risk adventuring.
Yeah, that's where I can see people getting funny about it, because they chose to be on there. They're signing the waivers. They spend all that money. They have all that money. Should taxpayer be footing the bill for a mistake of a millionaire?
But if they can be helped and they can be rescued, would you not? Or would you be like, no, you're
I'm just saying, I'm seeing where they're coming from now.
Okay.
But Ben, what do you think?
I mean, it's a human life. Can't say you'd pay it for one and then not for the other.
You could save them and go, oh, by the way, here's the bill.
That would be fair.
But then nobody would do anything because they'll just get sued all the time.
What do you mean?
If they get into trouble.
Welcome to America.
Damn, that's going to get some
heat.
This is well offensive, this episode.
Yeah.
So we've mentioned James Cameron a fair amount throughout the episode. He claimed that as soon as he woke up to a couple of messages and a telephone call about the situation, as soon as he heard they hadn't called the Coast Guard for 8 hours, he claims he knew it was an implosion from that moment. So we're just going to play a little clip of that interview for you now.
I didn't hear about it until I woke up Monday morning. I immediately got on the phone to some of my other, contacts in the deep submersible community. Within about an hour, I had the following facts. They were on descent. They were at 3,500 meters, heading for the bottom at 3,800 meters. Comms were lost and navigation was lost. And I said instantly, you can't lose comms and navigation together without an extreme catastrophic event, a highly energetic catastrophic event. And the first thing that popped to mind was an implosion. So I felt in my bones what had happened. So this entire week has just felt like a prolonged nightmarish charade where people are running around talking about banging noises and talking about oxygen and all this other stuff, and their Coast Guard is out with airplanes. I knew that sub was sitting exactly underneath its last known depth and position. And that's exactly where they found it.
A man by the name of Carl Stanley, who was a former friend of Rush and also a fellow submersible operator. I watched his interviews with him. He runs I think it's off Barbados or the Bahamas. He runs coral reef dive, submersible tours there. But he knew Rush very well and had been invited on dives with OceanGate. I think he did one with them and then said, no more. There are loads of interviews with him on YouTube. I'll pop the links in our Facebook group, but he speaks very intelligently about the situation. But he came up with one of the most clickbaity quotes about the entire situation. He said on national television the following about the Titan situation.
He definitely knew it was going to end like this. I think Stockton was designing a mousetrap for billionaires. He literally and figuratively went out with the biggest bang in human history that you can go out with. And he was the last person to murder 2 billionaires at once and have them pay for the privilege. Damn.
Yeah, that is quite a spicy quote.
So the investigation still is ongoing from lots of different communities and international governing bodies as well. But that was the case of the Titan submersible disaster. A little bit of aftermath for you. As I mentioned at the start of the episode, I'm a very big shipwreck and disaster fan. Obviously don't encourage them to happen, but the ones that have happened, I always find them fascinating. I think I mentioned in an early series episode that I watched the real-time animation of the sinking of the Titanic, and they're still out there, but there's some really good channels out there. Part-Time Explorer, Ocean Liner Designs, Historic Travels, and Maritime Horrors. They're 4 of my favorites, and I'll pop them all in the Facebook group. In terms of the depth and the pressure of the the wreck of the Titanic. Depth is the equivalent of 8.5 Empire State Buildings, or more than twice the deepest part of the Grand Canyon. Pressure, please don't say anything about me at the end of this, Tom. It is the equivalent of feeling 5,500 pounds of force, or having 35 elephants standing on one man's shoulder, akin to having about 50 jumbo jets stacked on top of you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
50 jumbo jets. That's class.
Yeah. I think he's tried to put jumbo Bens, but he's put jumbo Nens. So that's fine. The Logitech F710 game controller, the video game controller used to steer Titan, sold out on Amazon within days of the incident itself.
It's so bizarre,
it's like sort of, what do you call it? Morbid tourists, I suppose. But that sold out very quickly. And it had only been modified in that the dual stick, the thumb sticks had been sort of sharpened, it looked like. They little sticks added to them. Better dexterity, maybe. We talked about this on our 9/11 episode. There were a number of celebrities that were almost involved in Titan, just like different planes on the day of 9/11. So Mr. Beast, the YouTuber, under quite a bit of fire at the moment, was invited but refused. Ross Kemp, notorious British actor and hard man, signed off to go on it to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic. Well, not celebrate it, commemorate it. But his producers said no after looking at the Submersible. So Atlantic Productions, together with Ross Kemp's agent, deemed the Submersible to be unsafe and not fit for purpose.
Well done.
So well done, Ross Kemp and your agents.
Quick fire question. What do we think about the Mr. Beast? Is it cancel culture, or is he actually a little bit strange?
I don't know anything about this. Can you teach me?
Oh,
Dan's
shit.
in a bit of a rabbit hole about it.
He's been very weird. People are coming out who used to work for Mr. Beast saying he's insanely controlling. He's all about the money. People almost died on set with some of his videos. He's illegal gambling and stuff like that. And he's just not sincere. And he's currently being cancelled.
Dan's linked me to some videos that are from people that work for him, and they are very convincing, but obviously they're very one-sided. But it does seem to be a lot of people, Dan, that are coming out of the woodwork now. But again, that could be the cancel culture element of it. I
do find that he's one of the big, well, obviously he's the biggest person on YouTube, so there's going to be a lot of people that would like to see him crash and burn. I mean, show me someone who's like at the top of their field, and they haven't like been controlling, and you know, there's no billionaire that's made a billion without being a massive dickhead. And then, of course it's about the money as well. Like, he knows what he's doing, like this whole thing is like, so I don't know. I don't know enough about it to give a real opinion on it, but what's your thoughts, Dan?
Well, I mean, he's always come across with him being a philanthropist, but that seems to be, with these people coming out of the woodwork, not so true. But the thing is, I don't know, but I've never really trusted his face, how he comes across on his videos. I feel like it is a bit disingenuous. But that doesn't mean anything, does it?
I just always took it as he's a bit awkward. He's just a bit of an awkward, like, a lot of YouTubers are very awkward, and his videos aren't just around him, they're with loads of people he doesn't know all the time. So I just got the impression that was just him as a person. He was a bit introverted, and he's in the extroverted world doing that. But we shall see, I guess. But maybe when this goes out, we'll know more, and he will be cancelled, or he will be past it.
Can I leave you with one more interesting coinkydink?
Please!
That I've found.
Go on.
If I said the name Captain Richard F. Stockton, a captain in the year 1844, what might you start thinking there?
Captain F. Stockton. First guy to make fish fingers?
It's a very good guess. Captain Richard F. Stockton is Stockton Rush's great-great-grandfather's first cousin. And in 1844, he was responsible for a similar maritime disaster that killed 6 people, including US Secretary of State Abel Upshur. And apparently, it was a really freaky set of circumstances. Robert F. Stockton was the captain of the USS Princeton, which was at the time a state-of-the-art vessel. So Captain Stockton invited, once the ship was ready to go, he invited a large party over to watch basically this ship evade cannons repeatedly as a test. And he dodged several cannonballs, and then the final one hit the ship, showering the deck in burning metal and killing 6 men.
Imagine if I guessed all that.
Yeah, it would have been a great guess.
Yeah,
you know?
fish fingers wasn't a great guess, it turns out.
Yeah.
I thought you were
But
saying that.
weird coinky ding, weren't it? Weird.
Yeah.
Freaky.
Very different case to our usual one. A very interesting one. Goes to show that maybe it's worth, health and safety is a bit crazy these days, but maybe worth looking at.
Yeah. And yeah, that brings to an end episode 7 of the series. We're over halfway through series 10 right now. It's crazy how quick the time is going, isn't it? Crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
Yeah, but if you just can't wait for episode 8 and beyond, we do have a website with, at the time of recording, over 175 exclusive additional episodes, and you can get them in video and audio form over at icmap.co.uk. And if you're an Apple user or you own an iPhone, you can also access that via audio on Apple Podcast. On Apple Podcasts, simply type in "I Could Murder a Minnesota," and we've had some really dark, upsetting, disturbing cases recently. The murder of Becky Watts, the murder of Libby Squires, the abduction and murder of Sarah Payne, and the murder of Dimebag Darrell. Very sad stuff.
Great survival story of Alison Botha.
We did have the
Which is
that was
still horrific,
unbelievable.
but that is a survival story as well. So one slight glimmer of hope there. But yes, thank you so much for joining us, guys. We'll be back in next week with a brand new episode, so be sure to check that out. And be sure to follow us over on our socials at Could Murder a Pod, just to see what we're doing, and also just extra information about what's coming up this series.
Oh, my clue!
Oh shit, yeah.
Fucking
forgot Ben's clues.
Jesus, we've run out of time. Sorry. Bye.
Oh.
Benjamin Carter's cryptic clues. Everyone gather around for some clues that can be quite cryptic.
Chiptych Cruise.
Benjamin Carter's cryptic clues. Everyone gather round for some clues that can be quite cryptic, but he's going to give them to you anyway. Hope you can figure them out.
Okay, episode 8. Wow, we are flying by. I sell Kinder Eggs reversed. I sell Kinder Eggs reversed.
That is shocking.
Oh,
Yeah, it is my worst one yet,
yes.
but best at the same time. Best.
Wow.
Okay,
Yeah.
good luck, everybody.
Yeah. Kinder Surprise if you get that one. Fuck me. Sorry about that, guys, but good luck. But yeah, wow.
I got a few wows there, so
Yeah. Anyway, like we always say,
we say this all the time.
keep doing what you're doing.
Well, unless it's pretty much anything Stockton Rush tells you to do, or tells you that he's doing. Oh, don't try and take a dead person's submersible, when they're not really in the ground yet.
He was in the ground, wasn't he?
Well, no,
Definitely.
barely.
Barely.
He's cremated, wasn't he?
The soil was still wet
Still wet.
from the rain.
Could have been any time. Doesn't mean it was recent.
The soil was still disturbed. Oh,
Fuck me. See ya.
oh see you later.
Fucking hell. That clue to that. See you later, guys. 2-pip. Treat that right, Beano, you fucking. See you later.
Cut.